Hello, hope you're doing well today. Hey, today we're talking about consumer behavior. This is chapter 9. Here we go. So really with this chapter, you should be able to describe the concepts of socialization, involvement, and commitment, as well as define motivation and apply it to sport participation and spectating, as well as being able to explain different motivation factors and outline the decision-making process and the purchasing decision by sport participants and spectators. People participate in sport activities greatly in both developed and emerging countries, forming a huge growing sport consumption market. One of the most influential factors affecting one's sport consumption is based upon their relationship with others. It is the people that we hold close ties with that often sway our sport participation decisions. Family members, coaches, teachers, and close friends are just a few examples of individuals that people tend to look up to. Therefore, these are classic examples of people that likely influence the types of sports a specific individual consumes. Sport consumption means the expenditure a consumer spends on sports, which includes the consumption in all kinds of sports products or services such as sportswear and equipment, watching sports games, expense in sports media, expense in sports participation, and etc. Because the sports industry is becoming a growing economic sector, a large number of companies provide a wide range of sport products and service to this market. Social needs can significantly and positively influence consumers to produce meaningful sports consumption behaviors. Social needs significantly affect consumer motivations for team affiliation, self-esteem, and self-improvement. Different consumption motives are intrinsic to the generation of different consumption behaviors. The generation of meaningful sports consumption behaviors by sport consumers is mainly positively influenced by individual team affiliation and self-esteem motives. At the same time, self-improvement motives that only emphasize individual development did not significantly influence consumers to produce meaningful sport consumption behaviors. And social needs can further influence consumers to produce meaningful sport consumption behaviors through the mediating role of team affiliation and self-esteem motivation. Self-esteem motivation reflects the extent to which a person believes that a participation in sporting events provides an opportunity for alternative achievement. Sports media consumption can stimulate meaningful social cognitive experiences that foster human insight, perception, and socially connected emotional well-being in a more complex and sustainable way. A sense of connection established between the audience and the team, the player, or the fans can awaken the individual's moral perception of team spirit and team loyalty. Meaningful sports consumption is not associated only with positive emotional experiences. It also provides some emotional experiences that can be interpreted as unfavorable, resulting in feelings of meaningfulness. There is most emotional investment in the game and in the fun. This kind of emotion that tends to dominate the atmosphere and emotional reactions in the games. There is an emotional affiliation to a social network that encourages people to interact with others due to the social need of individuals. Behavioral validation is an important mechanism that mediates the influence of the external social environment on the internal self, which can help people innovate their self-behavior and form a long-lasting and stable self-system and become a significant motivation to mark the self. Individuals will continuously improve themselves to achieve the behavioral standards assigned by specific social roles to become a better self in a given society. The satisfaction of social needs within the broader framework of the social environment will enhance an individual's motivation for self-improvement. Psychology studies have focused on the socialization effects of sport participation on personality characteristics, moral development, achievement motivation, sense of competence, self-esteem, and body image. Anthropology studies have focused on the role of play and games and sports in the formation of value orientations, in particular cultural contexts, especially those in the pre-industrial societies. And really what they found is there is a socialization into sports which is dealing with the initiation and continuation of sport participation, as well as the socialization out of sport, which deals with termination and changes in sport participation, and socialization through sport, which deals with participation in social development. Socialization is a lifelong process characterized by reciprocity and interplay of the self-conceptions, goals, and resources of all those involved in social interaction. Identities, roles, and patterns of social organization are socially constructed through social relations that are influenced by the distribution of power and resources, in particular, cultural settings. Sports are cultural practices with variable forms and meanings. Processes through which people make decisions to participate in sports include the ways that gender, class, race, and ethnic relations influence those decisions, and the connections between participation decisions and identity dynamics. The social meanings that are given to sport participation, in particular relationships and contexts. The dynamics of sport participation as a career that changes over time. These studies indicate that sports participation is grounded in decision-making processes involving self-reflection, social support, social acceptance, and culturally based ideas about sports. Decisions about sports participation are made continually as people assess opportunities and consider how participation fits within their sense of self, their development, and how they are connected to the world around them. These decisions are mediated by changing relationships, the material conditions of everyday life, and cultural factors, including the sport-related social meanings associated with gender, class, race, age, and physical disabilities. Changes in patterns of sport participation often are associated with transitions in the rest of a person's life, such as moving from one school to another, graduating, initiating a career, marriage, and becoming a parent. And for people who end long careers in sports, adjustment problems are most common among those who have weakly defined identities apart from sports and lack the social and material resources required for making transitions into other careers, relationships, and social worlds. The belief that sport builds character has its origins in the class and gender relations of mid-19th century England. Making decisions to play sport occurs in context, and it's typically linked with friends, access to safe places, and to families in which permissions and encouragement are given to play sports. Sports participation and non-participation was the result of decisions negotiated within the context of a young person's social environment and mediated by a young person's view of self and personal goals. Care and sensitivity are needed to provide young people opportunities to raise questions and move beyond what has traditionally been available and accepted. Only then would sports and sport participation become avenues for eliminating socially imposed constraints grounded in gender and class. For adolescents looking toward becoming adults, this would make sports participation a more attractive alternative in their lives. Sports have a strong psychological, social, and economic impact on the lives of a lot of people. Sport commitment influences positively the participation frequency, sporting goods consumption, and media consumption. The commitment with a sport organization is often suggested as being the factor that induces consumption behavior. Sport commitment is a psychological state representing the desire to continue to participate in a particular sports program or sport in general. The concept of commitment is pivotal in a consumer behavior because theorists have suggested that it represents resistance to change. This means that even against persuasive attempts, such as an alternative activity or product, they are still loyal to it. If the participant feels the improvement in sports, they may consider this a benefit or an intrinsic reward, and therefore they will continue to participate in the sport as long as the results of their participation is considered a positive experience, whether the benefits to the sport outweigh the costs. The time that the participant dedicates to the practice is directly related to the concept of involvement. Peer pressure is an important trait in millennial consumption behavior. When millennials make decisions, they care about the opinions of others because they are strongly motivated to look good to their peers. When their peers believe that going to the stadium is cool, millennials are more likely to attend the game. This peer pressure influenced behavior is closely related to the relatively new phenomenon known as fear of missing out, or FOMO, a pervasive apprehension that others might be having rewarding experiences from which one is absent. There is a sense of identification with a sport, a team, and a sense of affiliation in which their value will be reflected through the meaningful value in a meaningful sport consumption. To ensure sport spectator satisfaction takes a successful effort with hard work, extensive planning, and long-term vision. Current day sport administrators must stay on the cutting edge as they remain on top of the heels of the fans to predict their needs and wants in the future. The administrators need to be adaptable and adjust marketing tactics to suit the needs of the sports fans in order to have a successful program and increase attendance. Generating more enjoyment and excitement for the community, players, and fans may boost the game attendance and winning percentage. To ensure that spectators will return in the future, athletic departments need to listen to their sports fans. People personalize a geographical location. They tend to attribute a unique meaning to it based on their experience. Stadium experience is considered original as compared to experiencing it via media. Perceived environmental quality and a unique stadium atmosphere are important factors in understanding why sport consumers attend the stadium. As opposed to spectating from home, a sportscape model including the 5 stadium environmental factors of stadium parking, stadium cleanliness, perceived crowding, food service, and fan control to explain sport consumer behavior. The concept of team loyalty plays a moderating role in the relationships between the stadium sportscape and behavioral responses. Stadium environmental factors positively influence the loyal fans' desire to stay and their behavioral intentions. The allegiance stage where team loyalty is built is developed on levels of fan involvement and the evaluation of personal, psychological, and environmental inputs. A positive environmental experience could further loyal fans' response to a loss. The environmental stimuli at a stadium exhibit a positive effect on affective and behavioral variables when team loyalty is higher. Fans with higher loyalty better experience a sense of place since they attribute deeper meaning to that specific environment. And iconic sites at a sports venue, such as the frieze that lines the roof of the Yankee Stadium and the Amen corner that you see here at the Augusta National Golf Club, can be a place where fans cherish the moment of being there. In addition, other tangible elements such as the parking service, food and cleanliness, and intangible elements such as fan control would influence the experiences of spectators at major sport events. Relational factors, especially identification, have a very strong influence on sport consumer attendance. A top priority for sport organizations should be harnessing the power of fan identification with sport teams. Sport organizations need to do more than just satisfy sport consumers' temporary motivational needs. Instead, what sports organizations need to do is formulate strategic plans of action that help sport consumers fulfill their self-esteem needs via team identification. A way in which sport teams can fulfill their consumers' self-esteem needs via identification is to engage in activities that create shared value between themselves and their respective communities. Sport teams are encouraged to identify community needs, benefits, and problems that are or could possibly be connected to them. From there, sport teams should re-envision their roles in the community and reconceive ways in which they can engage in joint value creation. Sport managers should look to implement customized approaches to relationship building, communicating, and supporting their fans. Sport managers launching relationship marketing campaigns need to understand how the effects of various antecedents may meaningfully differ across levels of sports competition, culture, gender, and age. An element of sport organization strategic efforts should be profitable while simultaneously building valuable relationships between themselves and their fans and local communities. Strong, constructive relationships between sport consumers and sport teams may produce improvements and mental health, physical health, and well-being that are similar to the benefits experienced between two individuals in a positive relationship. As athletes join a sport and become more involved in a sport, they become more immersed in the social world of the sport, moving from strangers to tourists to regulars and finally to insiders. It's important that even event managers understand how social world categories can influence consumer behavior. Strangers are often motivated to participate due to physical activity and improved skill. Marketing to those motives for the novice runner is a key. As the athlete progresses through the categories, motives change and other elements become more important, such as a more challenging course or novel event experiences and how well the event is organized. Some people appear to be motivated by competition, whereas others are not. Achievement situations tend to be focused upon either competition or cooperation. Putting the emphasis upon defeating the opponent is an competitive goal orientation that is associated with a loss in intrinsic motivation. Also consistent with self-determination theory is the observation that competition reduces feelings of autonomy, as the focus is external and not internal. Just as competition relates to an ego goal orientation, cooperation relates to a task or mastery goal orientation. People select competitive situations for different reasons. For some, it is to improve their performance and they have little or no regard for winning. For some, winning is the most important thing. And for still others, competition provides the motivation for putting forth effort, which presumably will lead to improved performance in the future. Some people are motivated to perform well, and further that some people like difficult tasks. Parents high in ego orientation emphasize normative standards when defining success to a greater degree than parents that were low in ego orientation. So parents low in ego orientation, in contrast, viewed getting along with others as more important than high ego parents and indicated that winning was less important in interpreting success. An individual participating in sports are consequently driven by motives related to winning and are more ego-oriented, and mastering of skills, which is more task orientation. Motivational climate being perceived as either mastery of the task or performance with ego climates are crucial situational determinants of behavior. Mastery climate refers to a performance structure that revolves around supporting effort, cooperation, and emphasis on individual and team development, learning, and mastery of tasks. On the other hand, a performance climate are fostering normative comparison and intra-team competition. Mastery climates coheres well with a more adaptive pattern like putting in effort, adherence to training, developing performance, well-being, self-regulation, and confidence among both elite athletes, physical education classes, and youth sports. A mastery climate also reduces likeliness of maladaptive outcomes like anxiety, stress, burnout dimensions, and dropout. When creating a mastery climate, the athletes get the idea that training and efforts matter. They get the idea that winning is not the only way to develop. Motivation is the mental process that initiates, sustains, or guides an athlete's behavior, their training approach to competition, and managing adversity and performance. There are two types of motivation in sport: intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation refers to athletic behavior that is driven by internal or personally meaningful rewards, the opportunities to explore and learn and actualize potential. Intrinsically motivated athletes participate in sport for reasons such as the enjoyment of playing their sport, the challenge of competition and reaching new personal levels, skill improvement, exploration of potential, etc. Intrinsically motivated athletes typically concentrate on skill improvement and their growth as athletes. Extrinsic motivation refers to athletic behavior that is geared toward earning external rewards or to avoid punishment. Extrinsically motivated athletes participate in sport for motives such as External rewards such as trophies, scholarships, media attention, accolades, or to avoid negative consequences such as being benched or falling out of favor with coach and disapproval of parents. Extrinsically motivated athletes tend to focus on the outcomes of athletic contests. Escapism is an intrinsic motivation primarily dealing with sport tourist emotions and has long been considered a source of motivation for travel. Escapism involves getting away from the routine and stresses of everyday life, but not necessarily away from people. Most individuals expect to participate in a sport that will temporarily take them away from reality and allow them to forget about everyday stresses. The internal drive to participate in an event for personal satisfaction, enjoyment, or freedom aligns with autonomous motivation. And seeking events to get away from their daily routine, they are seeking to devoid themselves of items that may be considered a component of controlled motivation. Additionally, the notion that individuals compete in activities for the excitement and pleasure gained from the activity is related to the motivation to experience stimulation, a subdiscipline of autonomous motivation. Therefore, escapism may enhance an individual's autonomous motivation. Another form of emotional stimulation may come in the form of nostalgia. Sport tourism has the potential to spark feelings of nostalgia, yearning to relive previous life experiences, which brings sport tourists to a different type of reality. Sport tourism nostalgia can range from physical places such as museums, stadiums, or Hall of Fame to actual experiences of participating or watching a sport in which an individual once participated. Another large part of sport tourism nostalgia is identification with a sport. Individuals who are driven by the history of the location will be the largest motivator for their decision to participate in an event. Similar to escapism, enjoyment will enhance individuals' motivation to experience stimulation and thus increase their levels of autonomous motivation. The desire to learn about or explore the destination of choice may also enhance individuals' motivation to participate in an event. International sport tourists are very interested in learning more about the culture of the host country, and this serves as a strong motivating factor to travel to a sport event. Individuals' desire to experience and learn about a new culture or event is a driving force behind that selection process. Therefore, we propose that individuals desire to learn about a new cultural event would enhance their autonomous motivation. It has been said that there are three factors which influence a consumer's decision-making behavior aside from the influence of marketing. They are personal differences, environmental influence, and the psychological process. The first factor, or personal differences, includes demographics, psychographics, and personal values or personality. The second factor, environmental influence, which influence exerted by culture, the social stratum, family, relatives, and other individuals. And third and final factor is the psychological process. Pre-existing information, learning from experience, and attitude and behavior modification are contained in this factor. This model represents the decision-making process for sport involvement. In the first step, needs recognition, the consumer perceives their needs. It is often said that needs are aroused when a consumer recognizes a discrepancy between desire and ability to fulfill that desire. For example, an individual may want to go watch the soccer games at the stadium, but perhaps he or she has never been to the stadium and doesn't know how to buy the tickets. When such a discrepancy is perceived to overcome, the consumer must take an action. The next step is information search, which occurs when a consumer seeks information on the internet or from other sources. For example, the consumer may look up what kinds of soccer teams exist in Japan, which team is ranking high in the league, where and when the next games will be held, and so on. There are two ways to access the information: the internal search and external search. Internal search relies on the consumer's experience and knowledge. The external search is utilized when the consumer's pre-existing information is inaccurate or inadequate. When the consumer gains some information, the evaluation of choices will be the next step as the consumer evaluates the alternatives. For example, Was the service given at the venue satisfied to you, or did you experience difficulties making your purchase? At this stage, the most important element is the estimation of service quality. Since service has the unique characteristic of being invisible, service providers must aim for variable evaluations of their services. The next step is the purchase decision. When the consumer buys a ticket for the soccer games, now this individual is ready to go to the stadium and experience sport. After watching the game or engaging in other activities at the stadium, customers evaluate the experience. It is crucial that the consumer feels satisfied after experiencing the game, because this will lead the consumer to repeat the action. Consumers have 3 choices during this evaluation. If they are satisfied, they are more likely to repurchase the ticket again. If they are dissatisfied, they may never return. And finally, if they are slightly satisfied or dissatisfied, they may search for more information or may reevaluate their choices. In general, when spectators are satisfied after watching a game, they will attend another game. And if they are dissatisfied, they will not likely attend a game again. However, if a spectator's team identification is strong, it does not matter whether they are satisfied or not. They will attend another game. This indicates that to increase the probability that the spectators will repeatedly attend their games, a team must improve customer satisfaction and also strengthen their customers' identification with or loyalty towards the team. And these are my references. I thank you for joining me today. Have a great day.